Welcome to Behind the Catch Fence. I'm your host, David Hoffman. The month of August is upon us, and that means one thing, sprint cars ripping around Knoxville Raceway. Among the top contenders heading into this year's event is Jason Johnson Racing's Carson Macedo. He joins us today as he gets ready to go chase the ultimate sprint car crown. Carson, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being on.
Yeah, of course. So obviously, we'll go into Knoxville and what makes the race so big. But first off, looking at your year overall to date, you've got 6 wins so far, third in the standings. Just how would you assess the year so far?
Yeah, I feel like it's been a little bit up and down. We've had our really good nights. I feel like we've had a lot of speed at times, and like I said, 6 wins. I mean, that's definitely nothing to be too upset about. I know as far as the win column goes, we're ahead of where we were last year, and I feel like all in all, we've learned a lot this year. We've done a lot behind the scenes with, I feel like, with our race car, and even myself working on things with, that I can do better. I feel like we've progressed a lot, so I think that means probably the most to me. I think that we're getting better as a team, and I think that's really important. But all in all, I think that it's been a pretty solid year. We've had our bad nights for sure. We had some DNFs that have hurt us. I think maybe in the championship standings for sure. Um, but ultimately, I think that 6 outlaw wins, and then we were able to pick up a high limit win a few weeks ago at Lernerville. So I think that all in all, I think it's been a pretty solid year to this point.
And I'm always curious because you see how consistent you have to be to to contend with David Gravel the past few years and Sweet before. Just as from a perspective of having to run 60, 70 nights a year, I mean. Uh, How much or how hard is that to genuinely be able to run top five, top 10 in the and to eliminate those, kind of nights and make it like a top 10 and outside the top five?
I think that, I mean, overall, just the consistency is really hard to maintain. Ultimately, I think to win the championship, you need to have probably the most top fives and the least amount of DNFs. And I feel like this year, as far as the top fives are concerned, we're not quite there. I think the DNFs have been probably the most crucial hurt to this point, or hindrance. I feel like we had a DNF there at Knoxville. I know that we had another DNF at Williams Grove. That one was no fault of our own, really, just had somebody spin out in front of us. But ultimately, like those probably hurt the worst. Those are probably the worst two places to have DNFs as well, just because of the fact that normally there's usually, Knoxville being just a popular place, obviously a Mecca, and having the Knoxville Nationals later in the year, it seems like we have so many cars show up, usually have, multiple provisionals. And Williams Grove is really kind of no different. It just seems like having a bad night there with usually a lot of good local competition, no different than Knoxville, is really big, back marker offset in the standings. So we just try our best to perform on those nights. And unfortunately, this year we've just had a little bit of bad luck that's created that void in the standings where we need to make up that ground. But luckily, we have a lot of races left to go, and we'll put our best foot forward and see if we can't dig ourselves out of a hole.
Yeah, what better place than Knoxville? And just going into the week of the Knoxville Nationals, how are you feeling about it? Just based on the few times you've run there this year already.
I think we've got a pretty good package there. It seems like we were really good the one night that we ran there, and then the next night we had some bad luck, or we didn't qualify very well, and then I think had to, try to dig ourselves out of a hole and ended up getting into an altercation coming back through the field. I feel like we were charging, though, and had a lot of speed. So I feel like for us that usually is a really good thing and something that we can go into Knoxville with. Um, just a little bit of confidence. Plus, being able to run the Capitani and having a little bit of laps beforehand is always helpful as well. So I know that Philip and the guys are putting their best foot forward, and I definitely know I am too.
And what do you feel are just some of the keys to, behind the wheel from your perspective that you have to be good in order to have success there? Are there, like certain things that you have to be on with, or what's that like?
I think that Knoxville is really unique. I think, being that it's a half mile, it's really flat and it has, the corners. If you really look at it, like I've never actually measured it, but to me in the race car, it feels like the corners, like you're in the corners just as long as you're in the straightaways. Um, they're just really long corners. And I feel like that a lot of the times creates really good racing. Um, and I think ultimately is why you see the track be so technical. It's hard to win there because if you make a mistake in one of those corners, not only does it take you a long time to get through the corner, but down the next straightaway is long as well. So it's just a technical racetrack. And if you miss your marks by even the slightest margin, it's a pretty big penalty. So you can't miss and you got to make sure that you're hitting them exact every single time.
I was gonna say, is that a little bit more difficult because of the fact that you're kind of going with the technical aspect, but it's also one of the faster tracks as well?
Yeah, I think it just makes it easier to make mistakes because it's so fast and because it also is technical. I think that it just makes it really easy to make mistakes, to make bad laps. And you see it a lot of the times. I mean, a guy will have a, 2, 3 second lead and make a couple of mistakes, and boom, like the guy in second's right on his bumper. And I think that's just a product of what we just talked about.
And with the feature being 50 laps, obviously you guys don't really run 50 lap features too much to begin with. Just how much more do you feel that in the race car, both from like a mental and physical aspect?
I think that it just I just feel like longer races. I always said this, we see it a lot. We race midgets there at the end of the year in December, or no, and sorry, in November, and they'll have these 100 lap races. The Ventura Turkey Night. They had that. It happened at Placerville. They had the 100 lapper there, and I feel like the Hangtown 100. I think you just see with longer lap counts, with more time on the racetrack, more time for the track to evolve and change over the course of the race. It just seems like the cream tends to rise to the top a little bit more. Just gives them more of an opportunity to get through the field if they do have, maybe don't qualify so good and don't get through their night and don't get in the best starting position. Um, it seems like the cream can always kind of rise to the top, and the cars that are good really progress, especially through the second half of that race after the fuel stop. It makes a little bit of a change in dynamic, being the fact that the race cars get to be touched by the crew chiefs. I think that you can be really good in the first 25 and then, maybe make a slight change that is the wrong way and really kind of go backwards. And I think vice versa. I think you could be a little off the first 25 and really, just kind of maintain and then make the right adjustments and boom, you're going to be in contention to win. So there's just a lot more in it. And I think that ultimately a lot of the times what you see is a little bit more difficult to win because you got to be perfect throughout the whole thing. You can't really miss because ultimately the teams are good enough, the drivers are good enough that somebody's going to be pretty close to perfect. So you got to be on your game.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like you see, like I guess in a way, is it even more difficult to, like, is it more difficult to pass after the fact of like having like a little bit of like after that break, or what's that kind of like?
I think that maybe a little bit. A lot of the times by the second 25, a lot of guys know where to be on the racetrack. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. I think that, if they don't know, a lot of the times on the break, their crew is relaying the message to them like, hey, it seems like right now the top's better in 1 and 2, the bottom's better in 3 and 4, or vice versa or whatever it might be. And I think that ultimately too, the unique thing about Knoxville is that that could be the case, and then literally 5 laps later, things could change. It seems like that's I think that's the most difficult thing about Knoxville and the hardest, probably what makes it one of the hardest places to win at is that literally in a 5 lap span, like things could change, and then all of a sudden the line that you're running isn't the fastest line. The guy in second could find it before you. So um, you see it all the time. I feel like even in 1 and 2, like guys will start running the bottom and then throw stuff across, and then the middle comes into play for a few laps. It just changes. That dirt's really unique, that black dirt, and I think it makes for good racing.
Now, Knoxville is sort of a homecoming for Jason Johnson Racing as a whole. I mean, Jason obviously won there 2016, and then Dennis Alba had his Sweet Tower unveiled last or this year, actually. I mean, driving the car that's sponsored by Dennis and and with Jason's number as well, just How cool is it to have just that so many ties to such a historic racetrack like Knoxville?
I think it's just the Mecca. It's the race that we look forward to the most. I think if anybody says there's any race out there that's bigger or more prestigious, they're crazy. I mean, I think that Knoxville is just it's the Mecca for our sport. And I think, to have the history behind the racetrack alone, the winners that have won this race, um, just overall, for all the reasons above, it's just an amazing race. And to be able to win it would be incredible. Just to put your name on that list as an honor. So many guys have done that, tried for years and years and never been able to accomplish it. So it just goes to show that it's not easy to do. And yeah, with Jason winning the race is pretty special. JJR's won it a couple of times. Personally, never with me as a driver, but ultimately something that we're striving to accomplish. And just the feeling would be incredible. I mean, I know watching back that 2016 video of Jason winning the Nationals and seeing the emotion on his face and just overall the feeling and I mean, you could tell how much it means to win that race when you just watch that victory lane interview a couple of times. It's just amazing to see the excitement and just the overall accomplishment inside of them that they knew that they just did. It's pretty cool. So, yeah, obviously Dennis being involved in our race car and doing the Sweet Tower recently is really awesome. If anybody hasn't checked it out, it's something to see this coming week. It's pretty amazing, and the view from his suite up top is really, really cool. So, um, I think it's just one more piece of the puzzle that makes it really special for us to be there and to be able to win or run well in front of Dennis and his family and friends is pretty important to us. So we're definitely going to be bringing all we can to the table to try and put good runs on the board.
And final question for me, just I haven't had the chance to experience it firsthand, but I always see the endless traditions that are always there at Knoxville, and it starts at the Capitani Classic with like the sprint there with the I think was it a 100-yard dash or something.
Yeah.
Just with everything that kind of goes into that event, and like with Knoxville as a whole for that week, just I'm curious, just with all the traditions that you have in mind, just what's your favorite one?
I think I don't know. I mean obviously the final night of the Knoxville Nationals, I mean it's unmatched. The grandstands are packed, the pyros, the lighting, the history, like the feel, just like the atmosphere of that race is something that you can't really explain to somebody unless they're there. Knoxville just turns into this like totally different town than you can picture it be on a normal basis. I mean, it just is so packed. There's so much going on. There's so much life. There's so much atmosphere. And I think that's probably, I mean, it's unmatched, but the week is epic. I mean, if you look at it like for us, we don't get to run the 360 Nationals because ultimately we're at Ironman and Peevely. But even the Ironman at Peevely is incredible. We love going to Peevely. It's an awesome track. We leave there, we drive overnight. I mean, everybody's tired. Nobody gets any sleep. We race the Capitani on Sunday. We turn around and we race the Oski Challenge race on Monday. Like you said, they have their own little traditions there with the McCarls. They do a great job. Still trying to win that 410 belt. I've won the 360 belt, but I want to win the 410 one. They do the running race challenge, which I won't be able to compete in this year because I've had some leg surgery over the off season, but it sounds like they made a little rule adjustment to where you can put one of your team members into the running race, which is probably Philip will be running for me, and if I make the dash, if and when we make the dash, um, and then after Oski's over, you take a day off on Tuesday, and then the national starts. So it's just a great week. It's full of action. A lot of my family and friends come, and we spend that time together camping out. And it's just there's nothing like it. So really looking forward to it. And for any fan that is thinking about coming to the Knoxville Nationals that has never been, it's an absolute bucket list event, and I recommend anybody that loves sprint car racing to attend because I think that there's nothing else like it out there.
We're certainly hoping to head out there maybe next year and covering it. So that'd be one heck of a time. But Carson, I appreciate taking the time. Hopefully you end up taking that 41 to victory lane. That'd be pretty cool. But again, I appreciate taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.